What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Gary, and in this episode of Coding with the Fours, we're going to go over what encapsulation is, and we're going to find out why it's so important to use it when you're writing your code. All right, everybody. So today we are going to be going over encapsulation, what it is, why it's important, and we'll check out an example of encapsulation in some code that we're going to write together. If you're not familiar with what encapsulation is, it is one of the 4 principles or pillars of object-oriented programming. If you haven't seen the video that I just made, the one right before this one, called What is Object-Oriented Programming, we go over encapsulation kind of at a high level and just all of the other pillars and important things to know about object-oriented programming. So if you haven't checked that out, I would suggest maybe checking it out before you dive too deep into this one. But either way, we're going to go over everything there is to know about encapsulation so that hopefully you can start using it in your projects. Okay, so if you go out and you try to find a definition for encapsulation, you're going to get something relatively generic, like encapsulation refers to the bundling of data with methods that operate on that data, or the restricting of direct access to some of an object's components. And while this is accurate, I think it's so general that it's really hard to wrap your mind around, in my opinion, unless you have an example in front of you. Especially this first part, encapsulation refers to the bundling of data with the methods that operate on that data. Almost everywhere says this, and it's technically true, but it's really not the meat of encapsulation, in my opinion. The real wonder of encapsulation, I suppose, is the restricting of direct access to some of an object's components. And that's what we're going to be kind of focusing on the most here, because that hiding of some of an object's components is really what's critical to building a good class in object-oriented programming. There's a lot of other things too, but it's a big thing. So let's take a look at that in practice, hiding direct access to some of an object's components. So I'm going to pull up Visual Studio Code. If you're not familiar with my channel, if you're coming here from the vast depths of YouTube, then just know that I work in the world of Salesforce, and we use a programming language called Apex, but Apex is very similar to Java or C#, so everything you see here will transfer, for the most part, to other object-oriented languages. Okay, so let's get to it. The first thing that we're going to do is create a class together. So we'll just go ahead and bring up the command palette and create an Apex class. And I am going to name this, let's see, I don't know, opportunity calculator example. And, I'll just leave it as opportunity calculator. I guess I've got one out there in the world. So in opportunity calculator, say we have a world where our sales reps or something, maybe we're building some kind of sales system, and that sales system has a bunch of opportunities that the salesmen are interested in pursuing, right? Or that they could pursue. Maybe the salesmen aren't really that interested in pursuing them, but they could, to potentially make money or whatever else. And this is a calculator that we have available to maybe give them a percentage chance of winning that opportunity or whatever else, right? So in this class, we're going to want other people to be able to interact with it so that they can, get their calculations. They can see whether it's a good opportunity to take a swing at or go bother themselves with, or if it's one that they're probably not going to win. So the salesmen just say, forget it. Let's leave this one alone, right? And so let's take a look at how we would build this with encapsulation in mind. So let's say there is a method that we want to expose called, public void get opportunity, or maybe like actually calculate op win percentage or something like that, right? And maybe somebody's going to call this to figure out whether or not an opportunity is going to be successful or fail. And there could be a lot of things that happen in the background to figure out whether or not an opportunity is going to win or fail. Maybe it figures out, past opportunities that have won, and under what circumstances have they won, and maybe there's a particular person that if they're the key person to speak with for an opportunity at a particular account, you'll be more likely to win. Who knows? There's a whole range of things that could be taken into consideration when you're thinking about how how likely you are to win an opportunity as a salesperson. But even though we want people to figure out what their opportunity their opportunity win percentage is, we don't really want them to understand what's under the hood of all those calculations. We just want them to be able to call it and pass in, an opportunity to figure that out. And so all they're going to do is pass in an opportunity here, and we're going to have a bunch of private methods that, I don't know, calculate probability of win. Oh gosh, this is based on account or something. That's a long method name. I don't need one that long, but you can maybe see what I'm talking about. So you can calculate the probability win based off of the account, and then maybe there's some other private method in here that also calculates the probability. Calculate prob win based on past ops or something like that. And maybe these actually both return an integer, or actually it'd be more likely that it'd be like a decimal or a double, because these are percentages. And here when you call calculate op win percentage, what it's going to do is it's going to call calculate probability. Boy, I'm just going to have to copy and paste this monster and add it to this guy, like so. And we'll maybe have this one return a double as well, because we would need it to actually return a percentage, right? And so return 2.0. I'm not going to actually do any real calculations, so we don't waste too much time together. I will just say, 0.08 plus 0.82 or something like that, right? And so basically what this is going to do is you have this public method that the whole world can call to get the correct opportunity win percentage that you would like them to get. And then you have these other methods that are private that can that actually calculate all this stuff, that they do the stuff that's under the hood. For instance, if you're driving a car, this is a popular one to talk about. If you had a car and you get in your car and you press the start button on your car, or you turn the key in the ignition, you don't care what's happening under the hood of that car to make it start. Most people don't anyway. And that's kind of the same situation here. You don't care as a user about these calculations. And so they shouldn't be exposed to you. And more than that, you don't want to expose this to them. And why don't you want to expose this to them? That's the question that we're going to answer here in a second. But the general idea of encapsulation is you have these, they could be public methods, or they could be public and private methods, or they could be public and private variables that you have for your class. They could also be protected or whatever else. But for the sake of simplicity here, we're just going to talk about public and private for the time being. And you only want to make things public that people need to work with. Because you don't want to expose the internal workings of your class. You just want to expose the things that outside entities actually need to do their job. And this helps you in a bunch of ways. For instance, if I made this public, then another place, someone down the line could call this code and try to calculate an opportunity win percentage just based off the account. And that's not what we want to happen, right? That's not how we want our opportunities to be calculated. And that can put us in a difficult situation on accident down the line. Additionally, when you keep these private and local to your class, as in no one else out in the world is able to access them and deal with them, it's easier to make updates and change these things because you don't have a whole bunch of places that depend on these methods, these methods that kind of do the internal workings of your code or your class, right? Instead, the only place that can care about this code is this class that we're in right now, right? No one else outside of this class in your world of code, no other classes in your world of code outside of this class can care about these methods, which means that in the very likely circumstance that you need to change how the probability of a win for an opportunity based on an account is calculated, you can do that really quick, really simple, because you don't have 50 other classes out in the world that are referencing this method. Just this guy, right? So it kind of has two benefits. Number one, you're only exposing the things that you want to and need to expose to the outside world. And that makes it so that your code will always be used in the way in which you designed it for, and not in a way in which you never intended it to be used. And number two, it reduces the dependencies on all these methods that shouldn't have dependencies out in the world, which makes it easier for you to come back in here, change them when you need to, adapt them, do whatever it is you need to do to them. It's easier, much, much easier to change them when they don't have any dependencies in other classes outside of this one. So let's just take a real quick look at that. If you're still a little confused, we're going to take one more look through running some code together on this class that will hopefully make some sense. And I'm going to remove this constructor for the time being. And yeah, okay. So let's save this. I'm going to actually deploy this to my org, which may or may not work since I actually had a class name opportunity calculator. We'll see here in a second. Okay, it worked. Cool. So what we're going to do is I am just going to take a anonymous Apex script, and I'm going to create a new object from our opportunity calculator class. Calc. So I've now instantiated a new object from my opportunity calculator class. And I want to calculate the win percentage. So if I come down here and I say opcalc.calculate win percentage, first thing that's important is when I hit this dot, the dot operator here, you see that the only available method for me to call from this outside world of code is my public method, my calculate op win percentage. And that, as a developer in this instance, is all I want anybody to be able to call. Because this is the only way, the only correct way for an opportunity to actually have its win percentage calculated, right? If it was calculated in any other way, according to the business rules that my business gave for me, it would be wrong, which would be bad. So let's go ahead and run this code. And it runs fine. And, everything's looking good. So that's good. It runs fine. So cool. We got what we wanted, and we don't have the ability to call these other methods that are part of the calculation, but not the calculation themselves. However, if we made this public, right, and we saved this, and I came back over here and tried to call this, do a method call here, you can now see I have access to both of these, even though I shouldn't, right? And that would be bad, right? And it's all too common, especially for new developers, to write all of their methods as public methods. And then what happens is accidentally down the line, people start calling all your public methods, even though you didn't ever intend for them to call those methods because they shouldn't be called on their own. And that's really where you get into trouble. Then you have all these weird dependencies and these weird calculations or whatever else, and things running in ways that you never thought they'd run because they shouldn't even run that way. And so yeah, as long as you take into consideration with every method and with every variable that you are creating when you are creating your class, who should actually have access to this? Should it just be my class that I'm creating right now? Or should my outside world of code, all the other code in my system, potentially have access to modify this method or this variable? And in the case that they should, the outside world of code should have access to modify those methods or variables, then you'll make them public or potentially protected. But if they shouldn't have access to them, then you should probably use private or, again, potentially protected. If you don't know what the private, protected, or public keywords are, I actually have a video going over each one, which you can find in my list of catalog of videos, and I'll try and put them in the comments or in the description as well. That way you know exactly what those keywords do. But just be wary of what outside of your class is getting access to the things within your class, right? That's the core, I would say, of encapsulation, is to make sure you only give access where you should give access, right? Yeah, public means give it to the rest of the world. Private means keep it within my class because it's the internal working of my object or my class, and nobody else needs to ever mess with this, so please don't let them mess with it. All right, guys, I think I've hopefully gone over this enough and made it relatively clear as to what we're trying to accomplish with the principle of encapsulation. But if I haven't, please let me know. Feel free to ask me questions in the comment section. I'll do my best to get back to them as quick as I possibly can. And yeah, I hope this has helped, and I will see you in the next video.